for those that don't know, maybe a little bit of background about how you got from Helena, like you said, to now here we are in 2020 sitting in this chair.
Well, I started out as an assistant coach in the Catholic school system in 1983, and left in 96, went to Skyview. Well, I actually started at senior but ended up at Skyview. I was there for quite a few years, and then went to senior as an assistant principal, and then this is my 9th year in the AD position for School District 2.
Kind of crazy to think it's been that long. We're pushing a decade now as we get into this new decade.
It goes fast, really fast.
What are the state of, I mean, when you think, or when I think of athletics, and maybe it's just having gone to college here and worked here, but one or more of those billing schools was always going to challenge in any one of those sports in Class AA. There's expectations that come with that. There's pressures that come with that, but there's a lot of excitement in the town that comes with it too.
Right. Well, I'm really proud of Billings. You know, they support high school activities. Our community really supports high school activities, and they support the educational values that come with it. So while there are expectations to do well, there are also expectations to just have our kids learn and grow. And I think we do a great job of that. Our coaches are fantastic, and they keep their focus on those types of things.
What are some of the challenges of sitting in this chair, that maybe some of the differences and challenges from almost a decade ago until now as well, because everything continues to evolve and change a little bit?
Right. Well, the district is so big, and so, you know, the challenges of trying to find coaches is just magnified. The challenges of funding is magnified. Challenges of finding transportation, all that. Just get a little bit larger when you're trying to do it for 3 schools. But again, we have a great district. We have great support from our school board, great support from our superintendent, and we've got a great staff, our activity coordinators, who work really well together. And so I think we're a little bit unique in that we have a middle school program that we oversee, and so we really run a program from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade, and I think that helps the success of our kids.
You talk about some of the great coaches. You've lost some Hall of Fame type coaches over the last few years to some retirements. I think of the Mustache Club with Jeff Carroll and Lebsock and Claybo. Ed with softball, obviously, and everything that he was able to do. When legends like that walk away, how challenging is it to try and keep that excitement? And those young coaches that come in, you got to say, hey, don't be who you're following in the footsteps of. Be you and get this program to the next place.
Well, those guys were great. You know, that was one of the real apprehensions I had with taking the job, is that, you know, can you be effective at a job with people like that? You want to do a good job for people like that, and they were awesome. It was great to spend the time I was able to spend with them. Not only as a co-coach, but as an athletic director, just outstanding people. And if you look back at all the kids they've developed and coaches they developed, it's just crazy. So that was a challenge. Sad to see them go. But you're right. We have challenges with our younger coaches, in that those guys all spent quite a few years as assistants before they became head coaches, so they had a good background. Our younger coaches aren't getting that as much anymore, and so that in itself is a challenge. That experience dealing with, you know, all the things that come with coaching is a challenge, and so we work real hard with our coaches through that educational process.
Your son being one of those coaches as well, how much fun has that kind of been to try and watch him grow in a different aspect of his life?
Well, I'm real proud of him. You know, I tell him all the time, be a teacher. It's not easy to win. And when you don't, the pressure's there. And probably a little more pressure for him. I went through it as a coach. I think every coach goes through it at some point. But if you remember why you're there, be a teacher. Grow kids, and the success will come with it. So he's on that path. He'll stay with it. We're not giving up on it just because it hasn't gone well the last couple of years. There has been some growth, and so we'll see how it goes.
What are some of the things you, the coach, has taken into you, the AD?
Right. Well, I think that's the biggest thing. I went through 9 years as a coach and couldn't make the state tournament, and 6 of those 9 years we lost by three points or less in the playoffs. So we had some tough losses, and so part of that was when I thought about taking this job, I'm thinking, can somebody who couldn't get to that state tournament do this job? So it was an apprehension. And then I found out that coaches need a leader with that perspective to remind them that we're here for a lot of different reasons. Just because you don't win the state championship doesn't mean you're not growing kids. And our coaches need to remember that all the time. So I try to encourage our coaches all the time through the tough times. Just remember to be a teacher.
That many losses by 3 points, or that? Which one of those stands out the most? There has to be one that just eats at you.
There, you know, we were pretty good when I first started with K&I and that crew, and we lost two times in overtime to Great Falls those first 2 years. And I thought in both cases we were good enough to get to Saturday night. So they were tough losses, but that happens. You live and learn, right? And great kids to work with regardless of what happened.
What do you appreciate about being in this job and getting to work with some great people and stuff? Because I know that those coaches, everybody else out there really appreciates having you and having that experience as well. So flip it around for me and maybe talk about the appreciation that you have.
Yeah, it's always fun to work with coaches who have such passion for kids. I think in this society and culture where winning is amplified, we forget how passionate coaches are about kids. It's sometimes distressing when you hear parents talk about kids and when things don't go well for their kid, they attack coaches sometimes. And sometimes I don't think they understand how much passion and love those coaches have for their kids. That's what I love about being around them. They're not afraid of work. They're not afraid of hard situations. They're not afraid to make decisions. And so sometimes those things you have to temper a little bit, but that's what I appreciate most about working with coaches.
Changes in Class AA, and still perhaps more to come. Obviously, every single meeting with the MHSA Executive Board and stuff, there's things that arise, but the biggest one right now was throwing Belgrade into the mix, shoving Butte over into the Western AA, and then in the very near future, we see Bozeman 2, Gallatin obviously coming in.
Next fall.
What's the reaction been? What, from your chair, what have you kind of seen as this? It's been a pretty big change, obviously. Scheduling has been a little bit of a different story.
It has been, but it's nice for so many years. We've always had to schedule the odd number of teams, 12, 13, 14 teams, and it's been difficult. Now we see some advantage to having 2 divisions of 8 and some real opportunity to schedule some things. So it is a challenge. The transition's been a challenge. Trying to figure out, for example, with football, how to run the playoffs, and that's all been a challenge. But we have a great group of ADs throughout the state, and I think if you talk to a lot of them, we've done some good work in cooperation with our coaches to prepare for this time. And I think next year you'll see a pretty good schedule.
The football playoffs, there was a lot of, why would we take everyone? Why don't we take 4?
Right.
People could say we could have just taken Butte and Bozeman the way that everybody was. Everybody has an opinion on something like that.
Exactly.
How do you temper the, all of those different voices and stuff that you guys in the AD positions hear? Well,
it's tough. Everybody does have that, and coaches are passionate. And so when they don't think their schedule is good for their kids, they speak their mind, and rightly so. That's what you want from coaches. But you also want people who can work together and compromise. And that's what we have. Taking everybody to the playoffs was not, I don't think anybody wanted that. But we also want to make sure kids get games. And so we're not going to sacrifice what's good for all the kids just so we can run a great playoff system. That'll come. I think in the next couple of years we'll get that worked out. You're right, no matter what schedule you have, someone's not going to be happy. So we did make the change for next year that we're not taking everybody. We're gonna give 1 and 2 a bye in each division, or conference, I should say, and then 7 and 8 will be out. And I think that's partly because last year those 8 versus 1 games were not great games. So
I was hearing about, I think Ader and I were chatting about that. So it's 6 to the playoffs in football next year.
Yes.
From each side, and then it's flip-flopping where 1s and 2s get byes, but then East playing West in that first round? Or is it going to be East versus East?
I think in the first round it'll be East versus East.
Okay.
And then we'll make another decision as to how to move on from
travel. Obviously, plays a part in a lot of things in Montana too.
Yep.
Divisionals has been another thing that we've started to see in Class AA a little bit, and again, there's opinions and voices about it. Nice to have tournaments. Some of those kids don't get to make it to state, and then at the same time, it was those top teams maybe that were making it to state anyways. But what have we seen there? And there's still talk about expanding that to some of the other sports as well and doing away with some of the typical Class AA playoff formats.
Well, I think the playoff formats all came because, trying to run divisional tournaments with 6-7 teams just isn't easy. So when you have 8, they're just much easier tournaments to run. And so I think that's what kind of stimulated the idea to go back to divisionals. I would have loved to have divisionals when I coached basketball. When you lose that playoff game and feel like you're good enough to come back and still get to state, you'd love to have them. So it's about opportunity. It's about promoting your sport. I thought we had a great divisional basketball tournament last year in Great Falls. I'm looking forward to this one at MSU Billings here coming up. So we'll see how they go. They're more expensive in some cases, but we'll see.
Is there any one thing, I'll put you on the spot a little bit here, so maybe you don't have to, but is there any one thing that if you could change about anything that's Class AA related in Montana, or maybe even just athletically related in Montana? Is there that one thing that you've been pushing for the past 9 years, or maybe it's something new that's coming up and you're trying to get everybody else on board?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what that would be. The travel's the hard thing. That's not going to change. That's just the way Montana is. But I like the way we're going. I think it's great to see a couple more AA schools, and we'll see. We'll have to make some decisions about some sports coming up, I think. We'll see how it goes with the A-team. Soccer's one of them, but we'll see.
Wasn't hoping you would answer with this, but it made me think of it. The neutral site championships in football. Is that something? I mean, there's two sides of it, obviously, and they both have pros and they both have cons. It would be awesome. At the same time, there would still be plenty of challenges with it. Is that something that you could ever see happening in the state of Montana? Because there's a lot of people that would like to.
Right. I get that. I get the creating that atmosphere. If we had a dome stadium, that might be the way to look at it. My struggle is that we work really hard within our community to promote the turf field. Our community pays for that. And it would be hard to say, okay, well, you pay for that, and then you get to host a state tournament or championship, and you don't get to be here. And then we ran state soccer here with the new playoff system, and that was an incredible atmosphere for our kids. Probably the biggest crowd a soccer game in Montana has seen. So with those neutral site fields, you don't get that. But who knows? Again, I think if you had a dome stadium, it would be a different discussion.
And then just final couple of questions. Is there one thing that you're most proud of on working with the rest of the ADs and stuff like that in your tenure that really stands out as, that was a good thing that we were able to get implemented?
Yeah, I think just the schedules that we've been able to put together and the transition we've made over the last 3 years, we knew it was coming. We knew we had to do some good work. Our meetings have been extremely difficult, long and difficult, because you have to deal with every sport. One of the things I'm proud of is I think we give our coaches will probably tell you different, but I think we give them a lot of input. And whether they know it or not, we consider that input when we talk about things. So, I'm not sure there's one thing, but I think the working together over the transition to 16 teams has been a good deal.
Anything else? Anything else that we're missing out on?
I don't know. I still get frustrated. Well, I can think of a thing I'd like to see is state track in Billings. Right? And so we're working on a new stadium, trying to work with the Metro and maybe get some land out there. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't like the fact that we can't run a state track meet here in Billings. State wrestling's been awesome. But state track thing grinds my... They run the top 10 at Laurel. And Laurel's great, but it just frustrates me. We have to go over there. So, facilities. I don't think Billings has seen a new thing since, well, West High got a weight room quite a few years, probably 15 years ago. And in terms of a new facility, a new gym or something, we just
nothing.
Don't have it.
You're due.
So, our field, I should say.
Dalis,
yeah, Dalis.
Dalis would be about the closest thing that I can think of.
Probably the closest, yeah.